There's a really scary situation developing in China right now. You guys are already aware that the property market is very challenged in the country. And this makes it even more troublesome because their equivalent of the federal government, the CCP, has told the local cities that they have to deal with the property market challenges themselves. However, you guys already know, as we have discussed on this channel many times, that the only way to resolve this issue is by one, bailing out the property developers, and two, making sure that there's some sort of property tax system that's put into place so that the local governments have a different and more sustainable source of revenue to cover their expenditures. However, the CCP just telling them to do what they've always been doing is just kicking the can down the road and making this problem much worse. And that's what we're going to talk about in this video. So guys, smash that like button, subscribe if you're new, and of course, drop a meow in that chat. You're watching More Money. Let's get it. What's up, guys? And from the tone of my intro, you guys can tell that I'm very concerned about this, and let's dive right into it. So you can see here that the Wall Street Journal did report that China is pressuring cities to fix their property markets. And so in order to fix this, local governments are doing the same things that they've done to get themselves into this property issue in the first place by enticing home buyers with tax rebates, cash rewards, and lower down payments. And as stated in the 4-part Chinese property series, which I will link to at the end of this video, I explain why these are not sustainable solutions, and I will dive into that a little bit more in this video. Now, the Wall Street Journal reported that local governments will ultimately be responsible for fixing the property woes in their own markets. However, I believe that this is potentially a recipe for disaster. And so you guys already know what's happening. The Chinese cities have been resorting to a host of increasingly creative measures to entice home buyers, which are some of the items that I listed off earlier in this video. And more specifically, in China's rural interior, potential home buyers can attend government-run real estate fairs where they can buy a home and receive subsidies that could have their down payments reduced and have some property management fees waived. Now, the question is, why are they doing this? Well, the reason why local governments are trying to push the sale of more and more homes is because the way that the local governments generate most of their tax revenues is through the sale of land leases. So you don't actually own land in China, you get what's called like a 99-year lease. And so you lease it from the local governments, and that's the money that the local governments use to run the local operations. But as you can imagine, there's a problem with that because over time you end up building this house of cards that eventually has to topple because you're just addicted to selling land and not generating revenue in any other way. The only way to resolve this is you have to initiate a property tax. However, the reason why China has not initiated a property tax in 2022 is because they were already going after businesses using the common prosperity principle, which spooked investors or business owners or companies, and they stopped investing and in fact actually started laying off people. And so in order to sort of mitigate the effect of an already slowing economy, which is being further slowed by a slowdown in the West, they sort of did away with the common prosperity principle. But now you're left dealing with this property issue. And how are you going to solve it? Well, I don't see a way to solve it unless you sort of put in a property tax, even a little bit, just to get the ball rolling. But there's also other cultural issues involved with this as well. The Chinese citizens are just not used to paying a property tax, and this could topple the property market. So there doesn't seem to be any good solutions here. And on top of that, this is an election year. So their presidency is looking to get reelected for a third term. And I think he's very much incentivized to just kick the can down the road until the elections are over with, and then you could have a big contraction with the property markets. And kicking the can down the road is exactly what I see is happening. Nearly 170 cities across the country have rolled out a collective 325 policies to lower barriers to home buying, according to Zooj.com, which is a Chinese property search engine. Now, in this article, the Wall Street Journal effectively says that a government-backed bailout fund for developers, if realized, could help some home buyers get what they paid for, but it likely wouldn't be enough to rescue the sector more broadly. And I agree with that. And I've said it already in this video. My conclusion is that a bailout will only be a temporary measure In the 4-part China property market series that I will link to at the end of this video, I concluded that local governments need a new way to generate revenues, which can be reliably coming from property taxes. However, the federal government has halted that 5-year trial from rolling out. So the question is, what does this mean for Alibaba? Well, before I get into that, I gotta remind you guys that 80% of the watch time comes from people who are not subscribed to this channel. So if you can, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel grow, and thus we can help more and more people make intelligent decisions when it comes to investing in securities. Now, with Alibaba, the thesis remains the same. Alibaba is a play on the growth of the Chinese consumer, especially in the grocery space. And so I personally do believe that the current valuation of Alibaba does not even reflect this business. I believe that the current valuation of Alibaba only largely reflects a part of their sort of retail business, and you're getting all of these other businesses for free, including the cloud business and Ant Group. And so I think there's a huge opportunity here. And yes, there is going to be a slowing consumer, especially in fiscal year 2023. But beyond 2023, all that I really see happening is that the consumer grows at a slower rate than what they've been growing historically. But China's GDP growing at somewhere in between 7 and 10% a year for the next 10 or 15 years is not a bad place to be. Now, could it grow slower than that? Absolutely. And in that case, the valuation for Alibaba is a bust. But I just don't think over the medium to long term that Alibaba grows revenues at a rate slower than 7 to 10% a year. And with the share price decline that we've seen with Alibaba and the increase in the share prices of other cheaper opportunities that the Patreons did take advantage of, Alibaba is back to having the lowest share price as a percentage of its intrinsic value, according to the tracker that the Patreons have access to. And if you want access to the tracker, you can get access to that tracker at the lower tier of the Patreons. Now, I did mention that I talked about the whole property sector in a 4-part series. Well, you can actually get access to that whole series right here.